Hello, welcome to the Birth Equity for Black Women workshop. This workshop today is specifically for nurses and other healthcare providers in Louisiana. We're going to start out our workshop with a quick exercise. Normally, this is called the Trusted 10 exercise. However, for time constraints, we are going to just do Trusted 5 for today. So on the left side of your paper, please list the 5 people. Names of the 5 people that you most trust. This could be family members, significant others, colleagues, friends, etc. Just the 5 that you trust the most. Don't put too much thought into it. Okay, now we're going to list their genders right next to their names. Okay, now draw another line and please list their race or ethnicity. Okay, and now their sexual orientation if you know it. And lastly, their age. Okay, as you look at this worksheet, we're going to go over some just quick reflection questions. Okay, how alike are you to your trusted 5? Are they pretty similar to yourself, or do you see a lot of diversity? How do you seek out friendships with people who are different than you, or is that a priority at all? And how much do you think this group of people influences your worldview and your opinions? Just on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 being no influence, 10 being very high influence. And then just keep that in the back of your mind as we continue this workshop. Today we're going to talk about 3 different things related to this topic. The first is implicit bias. We are going to define what it is with a video, through a video from the Mayo Clinic, and then we're going to talk about how implicit bias can show up in healthcare settings. We're then going to move on to the maternal mortality rate crisis and how that affects the Black community, and then how we can unlearn unconscious bias in our healthcare practices and also in our lives. Okay, I'm going to switch my sharing to our video. Thank you for being patient. Okay.
What is implicit bias? Implicit bias is an attitude someone has, either positive or negative, without being aware of it. They're developed over a lifetime of exposure from other people and the media. And usually, these assumptions drive people's actions. These unconscious assumptions are often about race, gender, age, sexual orientation, and religion. An example, in one study, a group of doctors said they didn't have a bias toward people of color, but 2/3 were found to have an implicit bias against Black people and Latinos. This bias showed up in how the doctor communicated with the patient and whether the doctor showed concern for the patient. And this bias affected the care these patients received. In some cases, doctors recommended different treatment plans based on the patient's race or gender, which can impact health outcomes for those patients. We may be unaware of our own biases, but we need to work on recognizing and changing them to have a more equitable society.
Okay, thank you for watching that. So how does implicit bias affect healthcare? There's 3 different ways that it does. First, through interpersonal relationships. We can see this show up, like the video kind of pointed to, at diagnoses, pain management, and negative health outcomes for our patients of color. Internal dynamics. So this is within the healthcare system itself. It can show up through performance reviews, through compensation and promotion, collaboration opportunities, and medical progress in general. And then monetary through cost and waste. Implicit bias costs the US healthcare system up to $310 billion per year. So now we'll talk about the maternal mortality rate and how it affects Black maternal deaths. So the maternal mortality rate is defined as pregnancy-related death occurring up to 42 days following the end of a pregnancy. And the maternal mortality rate simply just measures how many of those pregnancy-related deaths there are in up to 100,000 or per 10,000 live births. Some US maternal mortality rate facts: average of 700 women die each year in the US. Black women are 4 times more likely to die than that of their white counterparts. 59% of Black maternal death is preventable. And despite Black mothers being only 13% of the female population, the death ratio is 40 per 100,000 pregnancies. Oh, excuse me. When I said the maternal mortality rate, I meant per 100,000, not 10,000. Okay, sorry. Going back down to our statistics. White women account for only 12 per 100,000 maternal deaths, which is still, don't get me wrong, that's still a big and unnecessary number. However, Black women suffer 4 times more than white women, and this is across the board. It doesn't matter when you're taking in account of socioeconomic status, marital status, education levels, or even class status. This number is consistent throughout all of those categories. And Louisiana is the leading state in Black maternal death. So the leading causes of Black maternal death are hemorrhage and hypertension. These can show up in things like preeclampsia, eclampsia, and also postnatal hemorrhaging. We need to know the signs and symptoms and what they look like on Black patients, because there is a difference between white patients and Black patients. That's not something we're going to go into further detail in this workshop, but in upcoming workshops we will. So please, please, please feel free to research that on your own. How can we unlearn implicit bias? First, within ourselves and our healthcare practice. Ibram X. Kendi said, the only way to undo racism is to consistently identify and describe it, and then dismantle it. So we first and foremost need to listen to our patients. If they're telling us they're in pain, we need to listen to that. If they're telling us that something is wrong, we need to listen to that. We need to keep our assumptions at the door when we treat our Black patients until we get concrete evidence to otherwise change how we are going to treat them. Believe our patients, believe and trust that they know their bodies, believe and trust that they are really experiencing the level of pain that they are saying. And think before you diagnose and treat. Before you give a diagnosis or you treat a patient, please just think to yourself questions like, if this patient were exactly the same except a different race, would I be prescribing them different things or treating their pain differently? And then reevaluate your interactions with your Black patients after they're done. Go back and notice the tone of voice, your mannerisms, maybe how you feel afterwards, and then just take into account how you can change and be more equitable in the future. And then expand your circle. Go back to that trusted 5 list. If it's not very diverse, go ahead and change it. If you do have a little diversity, you know people of diverse backgrounds in your lives, ask them how their experiences in the healthcare system are. Ask them what they wish they could tell previous healthcare providers. Get to know their point of view, get to know their worldview, and ask what life is like for them. Of course, they aren't responsible for educating you. but reaching out to people that you already know of diverse backgrounds can be a good step to expanding that trusted 10 circle. How can we reduce the MMR in general? So individual behaviors can shape the success of individuals, but policies determine the success of groups. That's also by Ibrahim Kendi. So first, we need to raise awareness of the issues. I know that for me, when I was going through the American birthing system, I was unaware of the dangers of giving birth in America. So we need to raise awareness of this issue in general. We need to be inclusive. If we are part of the solution, we need to expand that solution to all birthing women. Be an advocate for the Black community. Be an advocate for Black women. Be an advocate for our Black patients. And if we notice colleagues mistreating these Black patients, we need to speak up. If we notice that our hospitals that we work at, or whatever facility we work at, if we notice that the cesarean rates are way higher in the Black community with our Black patients, we need to say something. We need to speak up. We need to bring this awareness to our healthcare team. And then vote for policies that dismantle systemic racism. And this is not exclusive to any political party. We can vote for these policies in whatever party we're in. And the last thing I didn't put on this slide is to just have some compassion for ourselves. For a lot of us, this is the first time we're hearing about this issue, but also about systemic racism and healthcare racism, medical racism. So we need to be gentle with ourselves and know that a lot of this is unconscious. A lot of this is not intentional. So because we know better, we can do better, and we can keep learning and expanding and growing every day. And we can work to reduce the Black maternal death rate starting with our patients. Thank you.